Today we're going to learn how to use the semicolon. Probably the most common place that a semicolon occurs is between two independent clauses. They must both be independent clauses, so they must have actors and actions working together, and they should probably have answers as well. If they're not both independent clauses, then you will run into some trouble. So always make sure that both of the clauses are independent before you put a semicolon between them. So what is a semicolon? Well, here's what it looks like. Now the semicolon is very much like a period. If you have two simple sentences, two independent clauses, you could put a period between them. Or if those two simple sentences are related to each other, you could put a semicolon to connect them. So what would this look like in action? Let's say you have two simple sentences. Aliens have visited Earth. They seem to like small towns. Well, that's perfectly fine. You could leave it like that. Or, since these two simple sentences are closely related, you could write them as aliens have visited Earth, semicolon, they seem to like small towns. It works because they're both independent clauses. Of course, you do have to lowercase the word they because you have taken two separate sentences and combined them into a single sentence. Of course, the two independent clauses should closely be related to each other, so let's have a little quiz. Let's see which of the following should get a semicolon and which should get a period. A shark slipped through the water. It was hunting its prey. Well, these are pretty closely related, so you could use a semicolon here. Of course, you have to lowercase the first word of the second independent clause. I ate lunch in the cafeteria. Fourth period was boring. Well, that doesn't go together, so you'd probably need a period. A student was late to class. We studied the First World War today. Again, they're really not all that related, so period. It has been raining outside all day today. I'm glad I brought my umbrella. Well, these two work pretty well together. So, semicolon. Because it is late out, I have to go home. Well, I hope I didn't trick you here. Because it is late is a dependent clause, not an independent clause. And we learned in a previous lesson that you have to use a comma in a situation like this. So remember, always make sure they're both independent clauses. The boy ran away, huffing and puffing. Well, once again, we do not have two independent clauses here, so this also would need a comma. So always be careful. Make sure both are independent clauses before you use the semicolon. Now let's say you have two independent clauses and you decide to be a rebel and connect those two independent clauses with a comma instead of a semicolon or instead of simply putting down a period and starting a new sentence. Please never ever ever do this. That creates something called a comma splice, and what it does to your writing is basically makes it sound very fragmented and very choppy, and that can be a little distorting for your reader, and you don't want to do that. Okay, so remember, if it is two independent clauses, make sure it's a semicolon or put down the period and start a new simple sentence, but never ever ever use a comma. Now, on a side note, there are plenty of great writers who do this quite often, but they are doing it for a reason. They want that fragmented feel. So when you get a little more comfortable with independent clauses and commas and semicolons, you might want to do this for some kind of effect, but otherwise, use a semicolon or put down the period and start a new sentence. And everything we've learned about independent clauses still applies. You can have multiple actors, but don't let it get too crowded. Those actors can be doing multiple actions, but don't make them too busy. And every independent clause can have multiple answers, but never run on. Thanks for joining me, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.